Okay. All right. Thank you, Sydney and Maddie, for coming in on the call. I'm Tomorrow is going to be our final, and I wanted to talk about the different kinds of things, questions that you have had, and you think other students might have, and we'll talk about what the final will need to be, and when grades are due, and everything like that. So, if that's all right with you guys, I'm going to go ahead and we started the recording. When we're done, I'm going to post it in the YouTube channel as well. Well, thank you very much for coming. With just the two of you, this will probably be pretty relatively quick. I wanted to first talk about what the final is. The final is not going to be a test. The time will be at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon. If people cannot make it, they need to get in contact with me, and we will figure out another way to do that. If people do not do a final with me, the department mandates that they receive the unpleasant loss of a grade. So we have to do a final. But my final is kind of weird. I basically have 4 questions that you answer. And if somebody can't make it because they're working or whatever, and they need to call me like Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning or sometime Monday, I can work through that. That'll be just fine. I can call and arrange to talk to people about the final, or I'm sorry, do the final with people over the phone or via Zoom or Teams through Tuesday night at midnight. Okay, so there is some room for fudging, but everybody who makes it tomorrow at 3:30 doesn't have to deal with that. All right. Do you guys have any questions about the final that's going on tomorrow?
Nope.
Okay. Do you have questions about any of the assignments?
Nope.
Have you guys been able to do everything so far?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Last year I was having people do an awful lot more, and it was too much for, it's only 3-credit class, but I think my assignments, if I was taking the class, I would have been kind of overloaded. So I think that, do you think that this amount of work is about right for this kind of a thing? So
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
good.
For sure.
I feel like if there
doesn't.
were more, it'd be too much.
Okay, all right. And the writing, we do qualify on the regular face-to-face classes. We do qualify as one of the advanced writing courses. If we can get that taken care of, we do enough writing in there to qualify. But for a block class, I think that's kind of hard, and so that's why with the writing for the block class, we're giving you prompts to work with and just essays to write about the different artists that you look at. Did you feel that was an appropriate amount as well?
Yeah.
Okay, good, because you guys have done some pretty good, and I'm talking students, and all the students have done some really interesting essays about those artists and done a really good job addressing the questions. One thing that's kind of frustrating as a teacher is when you give parameters for like an essay or an assignment and people do exactly the bare minimum and expect to get the best grade from that. And if you do what's exactly required, that's what defines C-level work. And what I'm really happy about is the things that you folks have written both in discussion comments and in the essays has been quite a bit more than that C-level work, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that you're critical thinkers and you're doing your best to articulate that. So it makes it a lot easier for me to keep my food down when I read stuff like that. when I first started teaching this class, I wanted to take people's papers that they wrote in, that they sent in, and edit them and send them back. But I was told I was supposed to just grade. And then the quizzes, what I'm noticing as well is that the ones that are wrong, the answers that are wrong from people, more often than not, it's because of a misspelling and the computer can't read it. Or it's obvious that the person was not referring to the textbook, or it's obvious that the person was going through fast and didn't read that particular question. Because I noticed that when you have the textbook and refer to it, when you are cautious with your spelling, and when you take the time to read the question, everybody gets a really high grade on the quiz. I really appreciate that. And again, there's also been several people who, when they were missing points on the quiz, went through and added in the comments the correct answers and things like that, so their quiz scores went up. And there were several people who were able to do that and then get perfect points on the quizzes. So I appreciate you guys doing that. And one person yesterday pointed out that I had locked one of the quizzes, so you couldn't do anything after August 5th. And so I went in and reset that, so it's through August 12th. You won't be able to take any quizzes if you're missing them after tomorrow at midnight. So this is for the class in general. Make sure that if you haven't taken a quiz, go in and take care of it before tomorrow at midnight, because it won't allow me to keep the quiz open past that. So now I will tell you guys a secret. Everybody who watches this, and we may even talk about it tomorrow, but everybody that watches this, I need to have everything in to me so I can grade it by Tuesday. And so if you need a little bit of extra time, go ahead and take it, take advantage of that. But I absolutely have to have it in by Tuesday. So because grades are due immediately after that. And if I don't get it in by Tuesday, I won't be able to turn in the grades. All right. I'm thinking that several people have noticed as well that if there's a 0 that shows up for an assignment, I always write on it, please submit for points. And people have been taking care of that and submitting things as well. And I really appreciate that. One thing else I'm really fascinated with is, well, a couple other things. One is, for the last discussion, people have really gone through that worksheet of 4 steps to critique, and really have done an excellent job in critiquing other students' work. What were you noticing? Have both of you done that already?
Mm-hmm.
What were you noticing just about your relationship between you and the work that you were looking at? What have you noticed as you go through that process of the 4 steps?
I noticed, because I did it just today, I noticed that as I was going through that process, that usually when I look at any art piece, I just look for a few minutes. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Kind of leave it at that. But so this time around, it was really cool to just take that time to just really take in the piece, to really see what's happening overall, to see how it all comes together, and then to realize that everything together is actually invoking like questions and like feelings. And I thought that was pretty cool.
All right, excellent. How about you, Maddie?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Like having those questions helps you to take the time to really look and try to understand the piece and why the artist created it, and try to understand the artist as well. Because I think a lot of the pieces from that discussion, you could like tell almost like the artist's personality just based off of the colors they used, or the type of texture, or the design that they had chosen. And it takes, the questions like really help you to be able to take it all in and try to understand it more in depth.
All right, excellent. I think both of those really show what we're hoping to achieve with that process of critical examination. And I really appreciate you guys saying that. I think I mentioned that that Henry Moore reclining figure piece in that 6-minute video everybody watches. When I first came to that 35 years ago, I was nauseated. I thought it was disgusting. Going through that process of critical examination, just being able to articulate my own observations as I looked at it, forced me to look at it more closely and forced me to develop an appreciation for what the artist was doing, the techniques used, the materials used, the shapes that the artist created. And it completely transformed my relationship with that piece, and that was pretty neat. One thing that I would suggest that you guys do in the future with your own piece, and you can even do it for the stuff in this class, but there's no assignment. I would recommend, if you get to a point where you have one of your pieces and you're frustrated because you're trying to meet a deadline for a portfolio, or you're just upset because you can't figure it out, take a moment, take a breath, step back, and go through this process with your own work, pretending it's the first time you've ever seen it and you do not know who the artist is. I'll tell you, in times past, I've had all the students do this to one of their own works that they selected. And in every single case, it fundamentally changed how they viewed not only that particular piece, but their own work in general and their own talent. And not at all in a bad way. Because when you create something, and I'm saying you in general, no specifics, when you create something, you have a tendency to focus on the small little bits of your intent, your motivation, your craft, and your materials. You focus on getting this corner right, or those strokes right, or this little area right, and you lose sight of how all that works together. And as artists, we're hypercritical of our own work, and we have a tendency to really judge it harshly. But when we go through this 4-step process, asking these questions of our own things, trying to pretend that it's not ours, that we're seeing it fresh, at the end of that, we really see that, as an artist, you can produce some pretty amazing stuff, but you just lose sight of your own ability because you're right there with it. And I think it's important to do that. It's it's self-reflection, but more than that, you're seeing it how an audience sees it. And there's a lot of people when they look at your work, and I don't even have to know what your work is, but when you're dedicated to art, when other people look at your work, most of them are going to be pretty amazed. We don't remember that as artists. We just remember, the jackwagons who open their mouth and say something rude. We don't remember all the people whose mouths are just open with awe when they look at the stuff that you do. And so I think it's a good process to go through with your own stuff. And it really helps. If you're having trouble getting a piece to where it feels correct for you, then going through this process helps you to identify what's out of balance and what needs to be tweaked. But it helps you to do that without emotional attachment to what you're doing. I want to say it's Stan Winston with Stan Winston Studios, who said that sometimes, a lot of the times when you create something, you create it as a parent and a child relationship when it's not, it's just a thing. And he said to make, instead of making it the best thing that it can be, you've created in your mind, you've created a child and you don't want to hurt that child. He said it's not a child, it's just a thing. And if you can divorce that emotional attachment, then you can make that thing that you're making something remarkable and and truly valuable to another viewer. So which I thought was nice. And sometimes he said if it's just a thing and you have to start over and throw it away, it's an awful lot easier than if you consider it your child. And sometimes we do make stuff that is complete crap. I spent about over 100 hours on a sculpture once, and I was thinking I was doing the finishing touches, and it just kept feeling out of balance. And I realized I had screwed up at the very beginning, and I had to throw the whole thing away and start over. And that sucks. Because even though you try to tell yourself it's not your child, it's still, sometimes it sure feels like it. Let's see. So you guys have done all the quizzes and everything like that. How did you feel about the ready-made section? What did you think about that?
I thought that one was really interesting because it forced you to think about art in a different way. I don't typically look at an object that was man-made and think, oh, that's art. It reminded me of in high school, I was in a dance class, and we were talking about how dance can be a form of art. And my teacher, she said, is a urinal a piece of art? Could a urinal be considered art? And she made us all sit there and think about a urinal and how it could be art. And I was like, there is no way that a urinal could be art. And I fought with her really hard on it. But now that I've learned more about ready-mades, anything can be art if you take it to just another level. And I would love to go back and talk to her about the urinal being art now.
Well, it's absolutely fascinating how context changes everything, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was, I think, 12th or 13th century Muslim philosopher named Ibn Khaldun. He's actually the granddaddy of museology. Museology is just the curation and presentation of artifacts in a museum. One of the things he said, the moment you take something out of its use and you present it, even if you're telling people that what it was used for, but the moment you take it out of that, you've changed it, and it's a different thing. And that's what we're experiencing, is that exact process. How about you, Sydney? What did you get out of that?
Yeah, it was interesting to me too, because I really don't look at everyday objects and think about, yeah, that can be art in a different, the process put in to make them, it's art, but not after that. After that, they're just functional items. So I thought also that it was really cool to have that paradigm shift on objects that have already been made. So that's kind of my thought process on that.
Excellent. What I really appreciated about you guys as you were doing this is that some of you chose to present the object literally in a different visual context, and some of you chose to change the meaning in the object by how it was presented. So, for example, taking something and Marcel Duchamp turned the urinal upside down, presenting it in a different physical space, but also a couple of people took a really beautiful, high quality photograph, after Brett Weston or somebody like that, and turning this everyday mundane object into something like a landscape piece, and it was fascinating, or something that was like almost like a jewelry type presentation. And I thought that was really interesting. It really helped to have you guys write a couple paragraphs about, what is the new meaning? What's the old meaning? What's the new meaning? And I haven't seen one that you folks have done that was bad. There were a couple that I didn't see a title on it, and the person said, "Well, you read it too fast. Here's the title." So I felt kind of dumb, but it was really fun to see you guys actually going through that process and thinking about it critically, and that was very cool. I did an exhibit at West Valley City Arts a while ago, and it was it hit right at COVID, so the exhibit didn't go on. But we had two things set up. Three things set up to examine this. One was we had a pillar that every day the curator was going to take a different object out of Lost and Found and put it on the pillar and have the same title to it. And I can't remember what the title, it the title was something like as really thought-provoking as cogitation on a pillar, something like that. And then we also had a list of titles, and on a separate pillar on the other side of the room, he had the same object, but every couple of days he was going to go through and change the title. And so I have all these titles like the pelagic Argosy sites land, things that make absolutely no sense at all. And he was just going to switch that every couple of days. And then we had this room where on one side of the room, and it had a bench in this room. On one side of it was a label that said introspection room. And if you go around to the other side and go in, the label there was extrospection room, just to make people think. And it was the same kind of process. And of course, COVID hit. And so, our grand plans kind of failed miserably, like soaking wet toast. But it was a fun idea to pursue, and I'm really glad that you guys. It seems to me that you guys got excited about that and really did a good job exploring it. So that was really fun to see. Should I tell you what the 4 questions are so you guys can get ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
First, I'm going to have everybody. This is not one of the questions, but I'm going to have everybody talk about what they do. How long have you been an active artist for? What are you, the media that you work in? And then I'm going to have you talk about first, what was the biggest challenge in the whole class? What was the biggest success of the whole class? What made you shift your mindset the most? And what one thing are you going to be carrying forward to all the future work that you do? And that is basically, so there aren't any good right or wrong reasons. And this is something that people can do over the phone, but those will be the 4 questions that we address.
Great.
All right, so you guys have a leg up on everybody else, and everybody else who watches this video tonight will have a similar leg up. But you guys have the distinction of hearing this live. Now, I covered everything that I wanted to cover. Do you think you guys could come up, think about just a couple questions that other students might have?
I do have a question about the SRI thing.
Uh-huh.
So like, I email you the survey results and stuff, but do you want us to answer the additional questions you have on the Canvas page?
You can do whatever you want. The only thing that you are responsible for is sending me the image showing that you completed the SRI, and that's it. That's the only thing you have to turn in. If you want to address additional questions, that's fine. You can do that too. But the only thing that you're responsible for is just doing the SRI.
Awesome.
Okay. Any other questions you think other students might have?
I honestly can't think of any.
Okay. I want to reiterate that if people are having issues or stressing out about getting things done, give me an email. Let me know as soon as you can, and we'll do what we can to help alleviate the stress as much as possible. I will tell you one thing, which I think it's really important for people to know, especially those who are stressing. There was a gentleman in 2020. Both of his parents were laid low, hospital low with COVID, and he was their primary caregiver. So he was doing the assignments throughout the semester, but he was having a hard time turning them in because he was just overworked, burning the candle at all 3 ends, and just having a miserable time. And he thought he was going to fail the class. So he finally reached out to me and said, I don't know if I can turn everything in by the last day of class. And I said, as long as you get it to me, how many more days do you need? And he said, well, I need the weekend to work on this stuff. I said, okay, take the weekend, then turn everything in as soon as you can. He started with a D+ at that point of that conversation. He started turning things in. He started finishing them. By Monday morning, had raised his grade to A- because of being able to turn everything in. So if you are stressed out of your gourd and you are having a difficult time, contact me, let me know what you think you need, and I am more than happy to work with everybody I possibly can to get you the best grade that you possibly can get. All right. If you need to rework stuff, you need to smooth some lines on your paper mache thing, but you don't have any more paper mache left, you can smooth the lines with your file, go over it with the masking tape, and then apply paint and texture to that. You know, whatever you think you need to do to address issues that you're concerned about with your work, or fix things so that you can, you know, resubmit them, go ahead and do it. You know, take care of it. Let me know what's going on. One thing that does kind of concern me is that if you add comments to the discussions, I try to catch that. I try to go through that, but the Canvas doesn't have an automatic notification for me when you do that. So whenever you do resubmit or do anything like that, just to make sure, please email me after you're done with all the resubmissions. Tell me which assignments you resubmitted, and I will take care of it. Okay, I'll go through. Another thing that I want people to be aware of is that for the quizzes, the computer only recognizes exact spellings. So if you spell complementary the incorrect way, for example, the computer marks it as wrong. But when I grade the quizzes and things, I make sure that that's fixed. So I do take care of that, so you get the full points for answering it. You're artists. You're not professional writers, most of you. So you know, if something's misspelled because you didn't copy and paste or use spell check or whatever, so what? I have a pretty good idea of translating art speak, so I have a pretty good idea of what you did. Have you found, one other question that I have is, going through the tools of artistic critique, did you find that those vocabulary words at the end helped?
Yes.
Okay. When we were infants, we basically had comfort and discomfort, and those are the two emotions we felt. We were either happy or not. As we get older, that realm of the two poles of emotion expands, because there's so much more to experience than comfort and discomfort. There's a huge range, but it's very difficult to express that without the correct verbiage. So as you move forward, I hope that you remember these vocabulary words. It's one of the mandates from the department to help you work with the vocabulary words. And it's exciting to me to see, if you compare early critiques of people's work with what people are writing now at the end of the term, it is almost night and day. Because instead of good and bad, you're saying things like, I love how you use complementary colors. You know, I love how this is balanced. I enjoy how the shapes seem to flow into one another. I love how you've worked with negative space. And that is so much better than saying, yeah, it's cool, I like it. So I really appreciate that. And the difference is between being a baby when you're happy and fed and unhappy and not, and being you know, a mature adult where you're able to actually express a whole range of feelings and stations in the universe where you're at presently. So I really appreciate working with you guys, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow afternoon at 3:30.
Great. We'll see you tomorrow.
All
Yep.
right. You guys have a good Thursday evening.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye.
All right. We'll see you later.